Football moves fast. One season you're untouchable, the next you're fighting for survival. And right now, some of the game's biggest names are standing on the edge of the cliff. If they shine, their careers stay at the very top. But if they stumble, this might be the year football leaves them behind. These are players with just one season left to prove they still belong at the top, starting off with the most expensive British player in 2021. Jack Grealish has always been the quiet showman with swagger. Aston Villa gave him freedom, Man City gave him trophies, and the tabloids gave him a reputation bigger than he ever earned. But none of that matters anymore. This season will decide everything. Will he be remembered as the £100 million flop who partied harder than he played, or the comeback story that proves old Grealish still exists? Because the truth is, Pep has already moved on. He's brought in players like Jeremy Doku and Omar Marmoush, younger, hungrier wingers to do the job Grealish was supposed to own. And if things don't click at Everton, it's hard to imagine another elite club taking the chance on him. His brand of free-flowing football won't be enough to save him, and nostalgia only lasts so long. Luckily for him, the early signs are good. 4 assists in his first month, a Player of the Month award, and that unique flair is returning. But one hot streak won't cut it. He has to prove he can carry a team across an entire season. Otherwise, this could be his last at the very top. But Grealish isn't the only English star under this kind of pressure. Across the border in Spain, Marcus Rashford is walking the same tightrope, only this time it's higher and with even more urgency. Rashford's story always felt bigger than football. From feeding kids off the pitch to tearing up defenses on it, he was once England's golden boy, the kind of player you wanted to root for no matter who you supported. But modern football is all about what have you done lately, and lately Rashford hasn't looked like the same player. His career at Manchester United fizzled out to the point where he needed a change. Barcelona gave him that lifeline. But let's be honest, he isn't their first choice this season. That alone tells you how little room for error he has. This season is make or break. If Rashford can shine in Spain, he'll silence the doubters and force Barcelona's hand to keep him permanently. If he doesn't, the conversation shifts from a generational talent to a guy who peaked too early and now has to settle for smaller clubs. And there's more on the line than just his club career. If he fades again, he could easily miss out on the 2026 World Cup. The good news is the spark hasn't completely vanished. Against Newcastle and in flashes for Barcelona this season, he's looked sharper, more like the kid who once tore PSG apart. But those moments have to turn into months. Otherwise, Rashford risks going from England's hope to England's afterthought. But while Rashford fights to prove himself, there's another name back in Manchester who's running out of excuses. If you ask Manchester United fans about Diogo Dalot, the word you'll hear most is frustration. Not because he's terrible, far from it, he's decent. But for a fullback at United, that's not enough. You're supposed to be a game changer. Think about the best fullbacks at the very top. Trent, Reece James, Hakimi, Walker, and Cancelo in their prime. They change games. Dalot doesn't. He just features in them, and sometimes even cost his team points like this error against Fulham. Or this simple miss against West Ham, which ultimately cost his former manager Erik ten Hag his job. And after years of patience, this season feels like his last audition. Manchester United is in a rebuild, and if he doesn't step up, they won't hesitate to move him on. They can't afford to carry a player who doesn't deliver at the highest level. But the truth is, Dalot's career could still swing either way. He's still got the talent and probably hasn't peaked. He's young and has the engine. But this year he needs to prove himself. Else, he'll become another what could have been story. And if there's one player who perfectly embodies wasted potential, it's his old teammate Jadon Sancho. When Sancho burst onto the scene at Dortmund, he was the kid who made defenders dizzy, the one England thought could be their answer to Neymar. But since moving to Manchester United, that player has disappeared. The dribbles are now, let's face it, predictable. The confidence is missing. And then came the off-pitch drama with Erik ten Hag, which killed whatever momentum he had left. He went back to Dortmund on loan, to Chelsea on loan, but nobody wanted him permanently. Now, he's again on loan at Aston Villa. And make no mistake, this is his final lifeline. During his stint at Chelsea, the Blues planned to keep him, but towards the end, he declined. If Sancho doesn't revive his career, the lights go out on his time at the top. Nobody pays 70 million twice. This is definitely his last chance. At Villa, he doesn't have excuses. The system is there, the minutes are there. The only question is whether the old Sancho is still there. Just like this channel, where the system is there and you are the one to provide the minutes. So quickly, hit that like and subscribe button and turn on notifications for more. Moving on, none of the players we mentioned so far had a system that supports their playing style, but Antonio Rudiger doesn't get to complain about that. The German was supposed to be the warrior Real Madrid could trust, the no-nonsense defender who bullied attackers. Okay, except for these sorts of nonsense bullying. These are hilarious, aren't they? Alright, jokes aside. But lately he's looked more like a liability. Just look at that 4-0 humiliation against PSG. Rudiger was a disaster. He messed up passes, lost duels, and at one point was stripped of the ball so easily it became a highlight reel for the opposition. For a club like Real Madrid, this isn't just a bad game, it's a warning sign. At 32, Rudiger is no longer the future. They have younger defenders like Raúl Asensio rising fast and waiting, Eder Militao waiting to step in, and Florentino Perez is never afraid to buy a shiny new centre-back. If Rudiger can't prove he belongs in Xabi Alonso's system, one that is built on discipline and control, his story at Madrid might be over by summer. He's not just fighting for minutes, he's fighting to show he's not finished. And the same goes to one of his teammates at Real Madrid too. Rodrigo has lived 2 lives at Real Madrid. In the Champions League, he's Mr. Clutch, the kid who scored a last-minute brace against Manchester City in 2022, a definition of a big-game player. His league numbers rarely exploded. In the 2023-2024 season, he managed just 10 league goals despite playing over 2,000 minutes. Not bad, but not enough when you wear the Real Madrid shirt. Last season, only 6. This season, the pressure is real. With Mbappe leading the line and Vinicius Jr. locked down on the left, Rodrigo's place feels shaky. He's played everywhere, right wing, left wing, false 9, and when your manager doesn't know where to use you, it's often the beginning of the end. The harsh reality is Madrid doesn't wait around. If Rodrigo can't deliver consistently, they may cash in, especially when clubs in England would happily spend 80 to 100 million euros for a player's signature. Rodrigo isn't failing. He still presses, still dribbles, still creates. But in Madrid, being good isn't enough. You have to be Galactico good. One more quiet season and his story might shift from the next Brazilian superstar to the one who never lived up to his potential. The next Spanish superstar and one who has so much potential will want to forget 2025 quickly. Gavi is a fearless and combative midfielder like Sergio Busquets. He's also a hybrid of Xavi and Iniesta in terms of flair. He made his La Liga debut at just 16 years old and was already a Spain international at 17. By 18, he had already played more than 80 games for Barcelona. To many, he was the symbol of Barcelona alongside Pedri. But football has a cruel way of humbling even the brightest stars. Since late 20 2023, injuries have begun to slow him down. A devastating ACL tear ruled him out for nearly a year. By the time he returned, the spotlight had shifted. Lamine Yamal became Barcelona's golden boy. Pedri still looked like the future of Spain's creativity. Gavi was no longer the automatic starter he once was. The numbers show the dip too. He averaged 2.1 tackles per game and was among the top 10 most fouled players in La Liga, but by 2024, his influence faded. Just when you thought the nightmare for Gavi was over, he's now sidelined with another injury blow to his knee, which requires surgery, and the youngster will be out for 5 months. Injuries can do a lot of harm to a player. His former teammate will probably know all about it. Long before Lamine Yamal, Ansu Fati was Barcelona's wonder kid, the youngest player to ever wear Messi's number 10 shirt, the youngest scorer in the Champions League, the kid who was supposed to carry the club's future on his shoulders. But then came the knee problems, the long layoffs, the failed comebacks. Each return looked like the start of a fairy tale, and each time the spark dimmed a little more. Going on loan to Brighton didn't help, considering the fact that the Premier League is the toughest competition in the world. Now at Monaco on loan, this might be the last chance to convince the world that he's not just another name on the long list of players destroyed by injuries. He's only 23, but it almost feels like if he doesn't catch fire this season, it's over. The magic of Ansu Fati was that he made you believe anything was possible when he touched the ball. If he can rediscover even a piece of that at Monaco, he'll still have a career at the top. If not, his story becomes one of the saddest what could have been tales of this generation. This next player, though, never had a long layoff even though he was regularly injured. But Kai Havertz might be the most confusing talent of his generation. At Leverkusen, he looked like a superstar. At Chelsea, he scored the Champions League winning goal, but never convinced anyone he was worth £60 million. Now at Arsenal, it's supposed to be his rebirth. Yet here we are, still asking the same question. What is he? A midfielder, a false nine, a target man? He drifts between roles showing flashes of elegance, but never imposing himself. Arsenal fans have been patient, but that patience is wearing thin when you cost 65 million and still don't have a lockdown position. Last season, Gabriel Jesus pushed hard for a starting 11 spot, but Havertz managed to make it his, especially when the Brazilian was often injured. This season, the pressure is doubled. Arsenal added more attacking threats, like Eze, Gyökeres and Madueke. Suddenly, Havertz's margin of error has shrunk. The German hasn't played this season through injury, but when he returns, he needs to start proving himself, or else he risks becoming the Premier League's eternal puzzle. Expensive, talented, but ultimately disposable. Like how the next player was let go by Chelsea because they were probably confused with him too. Nicholas Jackson finds himself in the exact same boat. His Chelsea career has been a mixed bag. He arrived with almost no expectations, just raw pace, clever movement, and the hope that he could grow into a proper Premier League striker. But his finishing has betrayed him again and again. In his first Premier League season, he managed 14 goals despite posting an XG close to 30. The following year, the story didn't get much better, 10 league goals. That's back-to-back years of underperforming, and Chelsea fans, some of the most impatient in the league, have had enough. This summer's loan to Bayern Munich looked like a lifeline, a fresh start, but even Bayern's hierarchy isn't sold. Club legend Uli Hoeneß admitted he wasn't convinced by the obligation to buy clause, openly casting doubt on Jackson's future. And that's why this season is a do or die. If Jackson finally bangs in the goals, Bayern might commit, or Chelsea might even reconsider. But if he keeps missing, Chelsea will cash out and his reputation as a flop could be sealed forever. He's talented, no doubt, but this is his final audition to prove if he's Africa's next great striker or just another Nearly man. While these guys are battling to prove they still belong at the top, a new generation is rising quietly in the background. Players who aren't just surviving pressure, they're redefining what the future of football looks like. Check out this next video and see the names you'll be hearing about for the next decade.